Hey there. So my next guest does social media in the gaming space. And I know, everybody does social media in the gaming space, right? No, this guy works for a company that does social media for some of the biggest brands in the space. He's like I won't even I'm not gonna spoil what he does. I want him to tell you what he does because it is so cool and he gives such amazing advice. Like I literally praised this guy for 15 minutes straight as soon as we were done doing this interview, just because how happy I was with all the information he was giving for you all. So I know you all are gonna love this one. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today I have a very special guest with us. I have Chris Okamura. Hey there, Chris. How's it going?
Pretty good, Bradford. How's it going?
Well, it's a beautiful sunny day in Las Vegas. How about yourself?
It's a beautiful sunny day in LA.
Oh, well, West Coast, right? Wouldn't have it any other way.
No, absolutely not. I've been to the East Coast quite a few times, and it's doesn't do me well.
I lived in Ohio, right off the Great Lakes, for 9 years.
Oof.
It is the most miserable experience you could have in the winter.
Yeah, I can only imagine, and very glad for the sunshine and the lack of crazy weather.
Absolutely, it was 70 degrees today. My wife and I and daughter went for a walk. It was gorgeous, and it's like 19 degrees back on the East Coast. All right, So Chris, I like getting this show started, just getting right into it. So why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
I've been in the esports industry going on, I feel really old now thinking about it, probably around like a decade now. So doing various stuff for things like MLG and IPL, and then working for a bunch of esports orgs and doing analytics and stats and working behind the scenes, in front of the camera, behind the camera as a caster, player, all kinds of stuff. So just kind of various things that I've how esports and kind of gaming industry as a whole is. You kind of just shift into whatever position and kind of takes you where the path goes. But currently I'm working with Creative Social Media Services. We are a social media firm specializing in gaming and esports. So our clients included, our past clients included 100 Thieves, Optic, Twitch, ESRB, things like that. And so we're running various accounts for them and helping provide social support and sort of social strategy and business support with them. And then on the side, I do coach UCLA Esports' League of Legends team.
Very cool. Oh, man, we're going to have a lot to talk about today. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I start every interview with a single question. So I'm going to ask you just like I ask everybody else. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, Chris?
Oh, I'm like a 12.
Why is
I'm
that?
the weird. I'm just a really weird mix of a person. I'm a huge nerd, so I grew up with comic books and anime and like, of course, video games, all that stuff, and like just a huge gigantic nerd. But at the same time, I played sports and grew up with sports, so I'm a huge sports fan. I have a sports podcast where we do in-depth sports analytics and stats and sort of break it down that way and talk about sports and stuff like that. So like I'm a huge weird mix, and it's kind of weird how esports came up. It's a mix of the things that I love and the things that I've kind of grown up with. But yeah, I have weird parts of my knowledge base that are like, perfect example, I got really into, I grew up with Super Sentai and Power Rangers and stuff like that. And so I was on Ranger boards as a kid growing up. And so I have a weird knowledge base for all that stuff. I can tell you episode names and actors and like all kinds of weird Japanese trivia things about that show that you don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I love it. I absolutely love it. All right. Man, you and I are going to have to hang out in real life sometime because I'm a huge Rangers nerd. But let's move on. This is the Gamerpreneur podcast, so I do need your video game cred. When did you first start playing video games?
God, the earliest I can remember is probably when I was like 4 or 5, or earlier than 4 or 5, playing on my dad's NES, playing Punch Out and playing Mario, all that kind of stuff. And then I think for my 5th or 6th birthday, I got an N64. And so playing Mario 64 and Mario Kart was like a huge thing for me. And then eventually Smash Brothers came out, right? So huge part of my childhood.
And I'm assuming your gaming continued as you grew up.
Right. So eventually it got to like where I was playing StarCraft, and that's where the Brood War stuff came in, and where I started getting more competitive stuff, right?
You were actually able to compete. I got crushed on the ladders.
I got to run into a lot of the what you would think of like old school Brood War guys. So
Okay, what do you play today, if anything?
a lot of League of Legends, of course. It's funny, I told my wife earlier, I think a couple days ago, I was like, I have been studying and analyzing League of Legends longer than I was in school, or almost as long as I was in school. It's insane. It makes you feel really old, and it's hard to think about. But yeah, so a lot of that. I have a lot of, again, a sports fan, so I play a lot of NBA 2K, and I have a lot of friends that play in the 2K League. And so playing that's been a really fun distraction, a really fun kind of like side thing that I do. But other than that, like Valorant and Legends of Runeterra, Hearthstone, a lot of like the auto battlers like TFT and auto chess, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. So
all right, now you've based on what you've said, it sounds like you're a little bit younger than I am, but you got to pick one game out of everything that you've played. What is your all-time favorite video game?
Competitive?
Yeah, just at all. Like if you know,
I'm a
desert
big
island kind of situation. If you only get one.
Oh, if I only get one, that's harder. God, if I only get one, it might be the Mass Effect trilogy. If I could pick all 3 of those, does that count? Is that cheating?
No, I don't think it is, because didn't they come out with a collector's edition for like?
It did. Oh yeah, that's true.
There you go. That's one.
That's one. There you go. Yeah. So like to me, I've played those games. I've beaten those games hundreds of times. I beat them at least once a year. It's my favorite game franchise trilogy ever. So I beat those at least once a year.
I wasn't smart enough to get a new hard drive for my 360. So every time I go to play them, I have to clear all of the other games off.
Oh no.
All right, let's switch over to the entrepreneur part, because what you do is freaking awesome, and it's actually incredibly rare for me to have found somebody who does any form of marketing whatsoever in the gaming space. So please tell me a little more in depth about what it is you do today.
So it depends on the client, and it depends on, well, so before this I was a social media manager for FlyQuest, and then I did some sort of business consulting with a couple other orgs that I won't talk about. But and sort of on a consulting basis. So I'd get hired to like consult or work with them on certain deals and things like that they're working on. So in general, for what we do at my current job, it's a thing where it depends on the client, right? So for something like Optic, it was right during their transition when they were getting sold to Immortals. So a lot of the original Optic staff was leaving or going to other jobs, and the Immortals staff was a little not overwhelmed, but they just needed some assistance handling 2 massive orgs worth of accounts and social obligations. So they hired our firm to come in and just sort of steer the ship and steady the ship while they were able to make that transition more smooth. So that included us talking to partners that Optic already had, and just talking about, okay, what deliverables do you have still that are on this current deal that need to be taken care of? Like, what is the, not bare minimum, because I don't want to make it sound like we did the bare minimum, but it's like what needs to get out and what needs to happen in order for these contracts to still be valid, and what needs to happen for everyone to still be happy with the current deals in place. And then as soon as we're able to get past that and Immortals is ready to go ahead and fully take ownership of it, then we can go ahead and step back and let them, give them a clean handoff, let them know, hey, this is all, give them a full report of like, hey, cool, this is everything that needs to happen. These are where we're at with everything. Okay, cool. And then hand it off to them with full confidence that they're going to be able to handle it. Because again, it's tough for, I don't know how much you know about social and marketing, but like taking on an entity like Optic into your organization is a huge transition piece. So if it's just dumped on your lap, you're kind of lost. So having a support firm like us come in and be able to take care of it without them having to take a lot of attention away from their own work, it was really helpful for them. So stuff like that is something that we do for Optic. Something for Twitch is like the I don't know if you've seen Twitch's social media. They have these 30-second to 1 minute long videos highlights that are just kind of like packages of streamers that are doing whatever topic the video is on, right? So like I grew up an FGC kid, so fighting game kid. So a lot of the fighting game stuff and like esports stuff our company was handling. So I would go through with like Twitch would say, hey, we need a video for the LCS that's happening this weekend. Okay, great. So I'll go through and I'll pick clips and I'll work with my editor and my in a producing role, working through with my editors, making that video, going back to Twitch, getting approval, and then giving it to them to post, right? So we work as a secondary content hub for them to be able to post these contents every day in conjunction with their own internal team. So it just, because producing daily content like that is pretty tough.
Cool. Now I want to kind of draw that point out because this show has dealt largely with streamers come on the lower.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are all doing it, themselves. And
right.
I think it's a very important note that, once you start reaching a certain threshold, different echelon, that you don't necessarily handle it all yourself.
Right. It's all teamwork.
Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream work. Now,
absolutely.
Chris, how did you get here? Like what led you down the path to end up here?
So, God, I don't even know. So as a player, of course, you kind of see the back end of things. You're not really focused on it, but you're like, oh, there's other stuff going on other than me just playing this game. There's like cameras and things that are here. Weird. Okay, cool. So you get interested there. So I went from that to doing MLG and IPL, where I was doing more community management stuff and getting my feet wet with sort of understanding communities and how sort of marketing functions, with how they affect communities and what people want in terms of marketing or what interests them. And that kind of piqued my interest. I think kind of the turning point for me was I ended up working at Machinima. They were doing a daily esports show for Verizon's Go 90 app. And so I got hired to be a on-camera person and a producer on that show, along with a couple other great people. I don't know if you know, like Axeltoss, and Axeltoss was on that show. Pancake Pow was on that show. Piscator Josh, who works at, I think, NEG now, or NGE now. Alex Yu, who works, I think, at Blizzard still. But so, yeah, we had a lot of talent. And so we were able to kind of wet our feet and kind of full creativity, say like, okay, like how do we make a show, and what could we do with these resources that Machinima is giving us? And so it allowed me to be a little more creative with producing, understanding how to make content, how to produce content, things like that. And then also working with Machinima's marketing team, because they weren't sure how to market an esports show, being able to work with them about what an esports audience wants and how to kind of experiment there. And so from there, then I left that job, ended up doing just some more freelance stuff, working with Riot and Blizzard and a couple other people, just kind of doing content, mainly writing, but a lot of kind of video content on the side as well. And then going from there to getting a job at FlyQuest to do social media, and being sort of my first full social media position that I was running a department for an org. And then once I left that, I was lucky enough where a friend of mine, Kyle O'Connor. So Kyle O'Connor is the owner and the founder of the company I work at now. And so he was the social media person at IGN, the head social media guy at Twitch. And then he eventually went to he was the first social media guy at Overwatch League. So he sort of created the whole branding and marketing and the way social media runs at Overwatch League. And so once he was done with that, he left, and he sort of said to himself, he had offers, and he said to himself, like, there's no, like, I want to work for myself, and I want to figure out, there's no like firm or free agent kind of thing for like freelance thing for people to work at that focuses mainly on esports and gaming. So he created it. And then so from there, I had just come off of the FlyQuest job, and I sent him a message. I was like, hey, do you need help with this? And he was like, yeah, sure, I could use a ton of help with this. And so I joined on with him, and we've been kind of hit the ground running from there.
I love it. Okay. Now, part of the purpose of my show is to actually get advice from my guests. That way my audience might be able to pull something like, oh, hey, that sounds like something I can use to make people
right.
grow themselves. And you do social media. And if there's anything I know, it is gamers don't generally do social media very well. They try really well, or they try really hard, but for the most part, most of them are struggling. What are some like key practice points that you think people need to know, or what are some trends that people need to keep an eye on?
As an individual or as a
I have had individuals, I've had organizations, I've had the whole gamut. So I mean, whatever.
So I think my main thing with social that people get really lost on, and it's so weird because it didn't start this way and it's starting to trend this way now, and it's something that, so if you look, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, if you look at traditional sports versus esports, they're starting to flip in this weird way, where traditional sports has always been very cookie cutter, business focused, marketing focused, where it's like every post reads like it's a PR spin or some kind of like blatant wide net catching thing, right? Where esports has been very focused, very like, we're fans, we're with you guys, we're one of you. It's very like meme based and clapbacks and like it's the fun stuff that like as a fan you love to see and you laugh at and you enjoy, and it really connects and endears the org and the social media to whatever fan base you're trying to reach, right? It's starting to flip now that money's starting to come into esports. You're starting to see some orgs really flip in the way where it's like, oh, that you can clearly tell, and it's jarring to kind of see. You can see that there is like a really clear PR marketing like branded post right below like a meme or something else it's really jarring to look at on a timeline if you just look at their page. Where now when you look at traditional sports, I saw this interaction the other day. The Phoenix Suns from the NBA if you look at their social media page, it looks like a fan's running it, and it's awesome and it's super cool to look at, and it's like, wow, okay, they're really understanding what their fan base is and where they want to connect and how they want to, the persona that they want to have with their fans. And so I think for me, it comes to a thing of understand who you are, understand what your brand is, and make sure it all fits and connects, right? Make sure it all, like, it's not a marketing person putting out a post one day and then your social media person putting out a post 5 minutes later, right? Making sure that all of these things interconnect and making sure that the messaging and the persona and the attitude that you're having across your social platforms is all the same. Because otherwise, then you're having this weird juxtaposition where people don't know what they're looking at, and they don't know if you're memeing or if you're serious or if you're, they don't know what to expect from your brand, and it makes it breaks the immersion and the connection that you have with those people, right?
That's a fantastic point there, the persona, the brand. Do you think that's something that esports organizations have been doing well over the past decade, or is it something they're just starting to figure out? Are they like making missteps, trying to figure it out? How's that going?
I think it depends. I think some orgs nail it, right? Like Panda Global is one that I can look at and say, like, okay, they understand their brand, they understand who they are. Cloud9's another one where I go, okay, I understand what Cloud9 is or who Cloud9 is, right? There's other orgs that I won't name that are really kind of figuring it out, and I don't blame them for it. And it comes down to the thing you'll find with most, I think, gaming companies and esports, especially esports orgs, the things that you'll notice is there's a huge disconnect between business side and endemic, like non-endemic and endemics, where of course non-endemics don't have the savvy and the understanding of the esports scene or of the fan base or of the community, right? Where they're issuing orders or they're issuing they're issuing these sort of tasks and these things that you need to get done, or these jobs, or these mandatory posts that are coming out where it's like, yeah, okay, this doesn't work, this doesn't fit, we'll just post it anyway. Okay, but they don't understand that, posting it anyway, yeah, it's one post, but if it's one post a day or once a week or whatever, it has long lasting effects, and it can like deter or derail where you're going, right? So that disconnect is huge, and I think that as that disconnect starts to close with some orgs or widen in some orgs, right? As more money comes in, of course, more non-endemic people get involved that are more business focused and more money focused, as it should be, right? I don't think that me, as someone that has no formal training in business, should be managing millions and millions of dollars worth of sponsorship accounts, right? I have no semblance and no expectation that that's going to be the case. But I do think that there's a balance that needs to be shifted, where it's not someone that just has a business focus, where it has, you have people now that are coming in that have the background, that have the understanding. So at UCLA, I coach, yes, but my function, I double also as as an advisor and as a counselor and as someone that I hope can teach people. And so, I'm happy to say that 3 or 4 of the people that I've worked with at UCLA that I've gotten to give advice to and talk to now have jobs at esports orgs that are doing awesome things. And they're the perfect mix of people that understand the community, understand what needs to get done, but also have now the teaching and the sponsorship, or the not sponsorship, the education and the sort of training to be able to do things at a higher and a more effective level than people like me that esports really was a hobby and really was something off on the side that kind of grew into a career that I didn't expect to have, right? I went to school for pre-med. I was gonna be a doctor. That's not what I was not trained. I was not trained in this marketing way.
Oh, right.
Sorry, that was like a super long-winded explanation.
Perfect. In fact, it kind of leads me to my next question, which is, the landscape has changed. I graduated from law school in 2012, and I kind of did what you did. I grew up obviously hardcore gamer my entire life.
Right.
My parents told me there was absolutely no future. There's absolutely none whatsoever. You need to go get a real profession. So I went to law school and I drank the Kool-Aid, and it wasn't until years and years later I finally found out, wait, people actually doing video games and making money on it. But it sounds like you got there before I did. But that market has changed. Like times are different. It's not like the old days, 10 years ago when you started, when it was still fairly new. How do people get into this industry nowadays? Like, it's the kind of advice you're already giving to your students, right?
To be completely honest, I have no idea. Like the way that I got into it, probably you got into it, you just kind of stumble your way into it, and you're like, so for me, it was a thing of, cool, I'm just going to show up to events and I'm going to ask for people if they need help or if they need anything done, and I'll get paid $100 for the weekend or whatever, and I'll learn and I'll figure it out and I'll make connections and I'll meet people and I'll make friends, and those connections end up turning into more opportunities because they understand that you're there to work hard and you're there to learn, and eventually like you have a level of competency, right? And they know who you are. And for me, everything that I've learned over the last decade is sort of on the fly and sort of by the seat of my pants. And that's sort of how esports and gaming in general was run for a long time. And so now coming into it, I'm no longer the chicken with its head cut off that I was when I was, 18. But my thing is, I tell people all the time, is you're constantly learning, right? Even if you went to school for something and you think that you're at a higher position than someone else, or everyone can teach you something, and anyone can provide some kind of insight, whether it's the wrong way to do something or the right way to do something, or something to make it easier, or if you just watch someone and say, okay, that's the way that's the hardest way you can possibly do something. At least now right? And you can learn something from everyone. And so just picking up little tidbits of knowledge. And I think that's kind of a problem that you're seeing with a lot of the kids that are coming in now, where they come in with a marketing degree and they come into the marketing department and they're completely lost, right? Because nothing that I learned in school, nothing that was in the book applies to what I'm doing right now. And it's like, okay, great. Figure it out. Like, and ask questions, and be afraid. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Be afraid to, ask questions, ask why. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, someone help me. And I think that's where, to me, it's the initiative to work hard, and it's the initiative to learn and to grow as a person that's the most telling to me. And that's kind of like how you get noticed. And so it kind of starts with there of like how you get noticed. And well, it sucks now because there's no events and there's no live things, but like my thing was always, if you're into fighting games, like go to tournaments, meet people, go to your locals, go to your, ask your local what do they need help with. If you're a League of Legends person, or if you're a Valorant person, whatever it is, play online tournaments. Go message people that are running smaller online tournaments. Start your own online tournament. Do something that just sort of gets your feet wet and lets you understand and gives you some insight of what is going on and possibly where you could help or what you want to do, I mean, because I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there that don't know all the jobs that are available out there in esports and what they do and what they really want to do. They just have an idea in their head of, I want to work in esports. Okay, great. Let's find what you're good at, and let's find what you want to do, right? And let's figure out where you fit. And I think a lot of people are just sort of stuck in the rut of, okay, well, how do I get started? Well, just get started, figure it out. No one's going to kick you in the pants. No one's going to hand you the job on a silver platter, right? You got to go out, you got to figure it out. And I think the fear that a lot of people have from doing that is like a failure and a failure falling flat on your face, where it's like, you got to accept that. You got to bring it on. Like, bring it on. I fall flat on my face every morning. It's great. You learn something every morning. And it's like, now there's a difference between falling flat on your face, spelling something wrong in a post, or there's a difference between that or completely leaking something out that wasn't supposed to be out there for another 2 weeks, right? It's a completely different thing. But obviously, like, the small little mistakes, don't beat yourself, but just learn, grow, figure it out, and eventually you get there. Not a very helpful answer, but again, just get started and get working and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, I think, is the biggest thing.
Absolutely. You mentioned taking the initiative. It's so vital. Now, Chris, on that note, you are pretty accomplished. Like, you what you're doing is
I wouldn't say that.
I'm dead certain there is somebody listening to this going, wow, this person they've made it in the gaming space. They're doing like what I would love to be doing. What makes you special? Because I'm sure there's thousands and thousands and millions of other people out there who want to do exactly what you're doing but haven't made it. What got you here as opposed to everybody else?
A lot of luck and knowing the right people. And it comes down to, like, hey, if I didn't leave my job that month and I didn't know Kyle O'Connor, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now, right? If Kyle wasn't if the stars misaligned and I was still working at FlyQuest, or Kyle wasn't starting his company at the same time, and those things didn't meet, I wouldn't have been there. If I didn't go to certain tournaments and meet certain people, if I didn't play matches against certain people online where I messaged them afterwards and we became friends, like, if any of that stuff didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I'm at. It all comes down to people that I knew, people that I got to meet, people that I got to learn from and ask questions and pick their brain on and learn from there. I think the only thing that I can say is, like, a certain level of perseverance and a certain level of willingness to fail, like I said earlier, and a certain tenacity of, like, I'm just going to make this work, right? I don't have a backup plan, right? So if this fails, I don't know what's going on. I got to have a conversation with my wife, right? Like, I don't know where that's going to go. But yeah, it comes down to that, of a lot of luck and just tenacity and perseverance to learn every day and not fail. Something that I tell my players all the time, and something that I'm proud that we were able to do at UCLA, and it's true of I think all of our teams, whether it's Hearthstone, League of Legends, Smash Brothers, any team that's at UCLA, and something that I'm proud of the culture that we've built, and something that I preached to my players from day one, was that it's not about, we're not there to win games, we're not there to hoist a trophy, and we're not there to win. We're there to be the best people we can, both on and off the Rift, in and out of game, to build a family and to grow and work hard every day. And if we're working as hard as we can, if we're pushing each other, pushing ourselves, and growing every day and improving every day, the byproduct of that is the winning and the success, right? But the winning and success is not the goal, right? The goal is to push each other, push ourselves, and to grow this family to where we are building an environment that is conducive to growth and success, right? But the wins are never the focus, and it's something that I'm very proud to say that we're not. That's not sort of the driving factor of anything that we do at UCLA.
I love it, Chris. Now, can we talk about you a little bit more personally?
Sure.
I want to know if we could go back in time. 10 years, and if you could talk to little Chris back then. All right. Yeah. And like, little Chris, look, this is everything that's going to happen to you over the next 10 years of your life. It's unbelievable what's going to happen. But here's the one thing you need to know. What do you tell yourself?
Oh, man. Just to keep going. Because I think that's the hardest part, where, and I keep talking about it, when you fail or when you make a mistake, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I've made a lot of like errors, and I've burned bridges, and I've burned bridges, and I've messed up a ton, and it's something where, you know, I've thought about pivoting a lot. I've thought about like, okay, is this really what I want to do? Is this something that's viable? Especially when I started to have a family, right? When I got married, when I had a daughter, it's a thing where it's like, okay, is this safe? Is this a safe and viable path for my future? And so, yeah, it comes down to just keep going and push forward. You never know what's around the next corner, right? When I left Machinima, oh no, when I left Machinima, no, when I left FlyQuest, I got a couple offers to do some analyst work with a couple of orgs, and I didn't feel right, sort of, because I'd been with FlyQuest that whole split, and so I didn't feel right joining up with another team, given the amount of knowledge that I knew about FlyQuest's inner workings and how their strategies were working as a team and all that kind of stuff, right? So I took a split off, and I ended up working for Riot and doing some coverage for Riot on lolesports.com. You can find articles there still. I think they still exist. But yeah, so I started doing some coverage there and analysis there. And so I think on a whim, I just shot out like, hey, looking for non-LCS opportunities in coaching or in League of Legends coaching. And I'd gotten, obviously I don't expect much, right? It's in the middle of the split. Every major region is playing matches still. All coaching staffs are full, and so that's when I got a message from Sunny, who was the head of UCLA Esports at the time. And so I, again, going back to super lucky, Sunny. So in 2013, 14ish, I had an amateur esports org. It was called Call Gaming. And so we had a League of Legends team, we had Hearthstone players, we had Smash Brothers players, we had StarCraft 2 players. I think that's it. I think that's all the games we covered. And so, but our League of Legends team was the UCLA Esports team. And so, we were giving these players sort of minimum contracts. We had Stuntopoulos, who now plays for, I think, Dignitas. I forget. Oh, no, Stunt coaches now. But he was in the LCS for a long time. Raken, who wasn't in the Brazilian league, and then eventually, I think now he's a content creator for Team Liquid. And so, those were our two kind of big players on that team. And so we were giving them sort of a minimum amateur contracts. And so, we eventually made it to the LCS promotion tournaments when those were still a thing. And so failed a couple of times, lost to Team Coast once. And so, eventually the team broke up and disbanded, and we lost our sponsors after the League of Legends team left and stuff like that. And so it was sort of a blip on my career of just like, okay, cool. I started an esports org, which is like a dream come true of mine. We had merch, we had jerseys, all that kind of stuff. We had sponsors, all that stuff. And I was super excited to do it. It's something that made me really proud, and something that I don't think much about anymore, but it's something that I'm extremely proud to have done, and it's something that gave me a lot of experience of how to run an org and how an org runs and how to manage players and eventually how to coach, right? It gave me all that kind of experience that I really appreciate having. But coming full circle, again, something I don't really think about, Sunny, being now the head of UCLA Esports, was a freshman at the time that Call Gaming was a thing. So when I was coming to campus every day, visiting the UCLA Esports meetings and sort of quote unquote marketing the team and sort of selling the, hey, UCLA Esports and Call Gaming partnership together, and shaking hands and dotting T's with all these UCLA Esports or UCLA staff members. Sonny's a freshman and he's sitting in the audience as I'm at these meetings talking to these people. And so when I posted, I'm looking for opportunities, he messaged me right away and was like, hey, we're looking for a coach. Again, coming down to luck, that would have probably never happened if Sunny wasn't that young freshman kid in those meetings that I was at and didn't know who I was and what I was doing, and that I could do the job. So again, like, if coming down to luck, right? Stars align and things happen.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Now, especially about Call Gaming. And I actually want to bounce off of that a little bit if I can. Because I honestly believe that we learn more from our failures in life rather than our successes. Because sometimes you might succeed and not know what happened. But when you fail, you can figure out what happened. And
or at least you dwell on it for a long
Right.
time and try to figure it out.
absolutely. But you spend time. You have to get over whatever it caused you to fail in the first place in order to be able to succeed the next time. And
Right.
that's how we grow as people. So I'd like to ask you, what do you consider your biggest failure in life? What did you learn from it?
Man, that's tough. I'm not entirely sure, actually. I think they all kind of blend together, and it's something that I don't try to look at failure individually as like this is the failure that makes that that made me who I am. This isn't my Batman moment of like crying in the alley, right? It's I don't know what it is. I just know like over time you take I it's like I always consider it like a Bethesda game or like a Fallout or like a Cyberpunk where you're running around the world and you're just looting everything you can. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna fight these guys and then I'll loot everything and I'll run away and I'll go to the next thing, right? And so with failure, yeah, you're just like you go through the battle, you go through the fight, and you may not remember the specifics of it. You may not know exactly why, but you pick up the scraps that you can. You're like, okay, this is still useful. I understand this now. Okay, great. And then you run on to the next thing. And as you kind of run through life, yeah, you might not remember the battle from maybe you have some tidbits and some things of like, okay, yeah, I don't remember where I got this. It was like 3 battles ago. I have no idea where I picked up this gun at, but yeah, it's useful now. I upgraded it and I fixed it and I repaired it and it's awesome now, but like I looted it from a guy I don't know where. But there's certain things that you take it with you, right? I take the lessons with me more so than the actual experiences themselves, because I think I would die under the pressure of like all of these mounting failures. But yeah, I think I take them all as a whole, and I take more so what I got out of them more so than the actual individual experiences themselves.
I love that answer. I really do. And in fact, I know a bunch of people. I'm going to send the link for this video just for that section right there. A lot of people have a hard time getting over those failures. And like, I really did love that answer because you can't hold on to the pain. You can take the lesson and move forward. Like, I love how you described it as take the loot. Just take the loot and run.
Yeah. Yeah. You might wipe on a boss 40 times, but like as soon as you figure it out and you finally beat that boss, you're elated. You take your lessons as you go and you're like, I finally did it. I got it. And then you take those lessons on to wherever you're going next, right?
Absolutely. Right now,
you don't remember the 39 other times you lost. Oh, sorry. Continue.
I remember every time I lost to Ragnarok in World Warcraft.
Oh my goodness. I remember every time it didn't drop.
What didn't drop?
The Hand of Ragnarok.
I got my Thunder Fury in 3 weeks. And then 4 weeks after that, the eye drop, and there was no one else to get it, so I got that too.
Wow, look at you. Side note, one of my favorite stories, just real quick, and you can find I clipped it out and I put it somewhere on my either Twitter or Twitch, I can't remember, but I don't know if are you a Destiny fan at all?
I played a little bit.
So Destiny 2, when it first came out, there was a gun called Uriel's Gift, which it dropped from I think Venus, and so you had to run Venus strikes or Venus bounties. So you got to get tokens to give to the guy to give the bounties or whatever. And so I ran it for a month and I couldn't get it to drop, and I was like, this is unbelievable. And so one of my friends, Xavier, would jump on with me every night and like, hey, cool, do you want some company while you run these mindless tasks? I was like, yeah, sure, dude. So we'd talk and hang out and do whatever. End of the night, we'd turn it in. I think 3 nights in a row he got one. And I was like, you need to stop. You need to go away. You need to stop. And so the clip that I clipped out was he got 2 in one night. I just turned off the stream. I just turned off the call and turned the stream off, and I was like, I'm done.
RNG can be a pain, right?
Yeah, it was hilarious because I'm just like, God damn it, I didn't get it. And on the bottom ticker, I just see like Surreal has pulled Uriel's Gift, and I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm done. I was like, I'm out of here.
All right, Chris, I got one more kind of businessy, personal related question.
Yeah.
And then we'll start bringing this in for Atlantic. Related to the failure question, on the flip side of that, what is something that you're working to improve on yourself today?
I think I'm always working on communication and like being a communicator. And I think that comes with everything that I'm doing as a coach, everything that I'm doing in social media, and just sort of being a human in general. I think so many issues and so many problems that you run into can be fixed with solid and better communication. And so figuring out like, hey, how can I better communicate this idea or better communicate this concept to someone, whether it's me trying to describe a video that I need made to my editor, or whether it's me trying to describe a strategy that I need my players to understand. Being able to communicate all of that. And I think the thing that I've come down to is a lot of it comes down to having everyone involved in the planning stage, or at least having everyone involved with sort of the ideation of the idea or the concept. So like this is something that I've really come across with coaching is there's kind of two philosophies of coaching, but the one that I saw most commonly when I was working in LCS was coach has an idea, or player coach has an idea, and they explain the idea and they go out and they execute the strategy or the idea or the concept, whatever it is, right? Where, okay, cool. When something goes wrong, not if, when something goes wrong, because it always does, the other players don't know how to react because they don't understand the meaning or the core concept of why the strategy is executed or why we're doing something, right? It's something that you see a lot with the LCS when they run. So a lot of LCS strategies, at least a couple of years ago, were based kind of loosely on LCK strategies, so like Korean strategies. So you'll see a lot of players. Like I always called the LCS like the beta, the Chinese offshoot of LCK strategies, where it's just like, yeah, they don't know. It's like kind of bootleg, right? Like they don't know why this is a thing. They just do it because it works because they're doing it, right? And it's a thing where, yeah, okay, they don't understand why it works, and they don't understand why it functions the way it does. They just understand that it works. So when you ask someone like, why does this work? They just go, I don't know. It's strong, right? Like that's the explanation they give. And so like I always take this thing like Adam Savage is I don't know if you know Adam Savage from Mythbusters, and he does Tested now. The thing that always sticks with me is he explains glues, and he explains that like no one. He's talked to physicists and all kinds of biologists and all kinds of like chemists and everything like that. No one understands how glues work at a molecular level. The explanation is just like, yeah, it's sticky, right? And it's like, well, why is it sticky? I don't know. It works, right? It just works, right? And so when you're talking about strategies, if you're just kind of, if someone from the top down is handing something down to you, and it goes down to the social media thing too. If someone from the top down is just handing you something, and you don't understand the why or the what or at the molecular level why it works or why it needs to be this way, then you just post it mindlessly without thinking about it, or you're not able to put a spin or work with it at all. It's just this thing that you're given to work with. And then when something goes wrong, you don't know how to react or change it or adjust it or maneuver it in a way that makes it work or function, right? Whereas as a coach, if I'm talking with my team and we're developing this strategy together or developing a concept together or an idea, then yeah, everyone has a say and everyone understands because they're a part of the conversation and they're part of the ideology and they're a part of the process of getting it from A to B, where, okay, now they understand why we're doing something, or they're understanding the what or the why or like the reasoning behind it. So if something goes wrong, okay, yeah, we can't do this. Well, okay, they shut this off. Okay, we can't pivot here because this will happen, but we can pivot here. This is the other like lane to go through, right? And so that kind of functions in that same way.
And it's so true. That applies to pretty much any aspect of any business. I mean, I've seen it in other departments where management doesn't tell, the grunt labor why they're doing the thing they're doing. And then when it doesn't work, like management's not available by phone, like what are we supposed to do? And it's like chickens with their head cut off, like you said earlier.
Right. And so, yeah, it comes down to the thing of, yeah, you always ask why. And if they can't give you an explanation as to why, you go and you figure out a reason why, or you try to figure it out why. I don't just execute things anymore. Obviously, like, yeah, some things are easily explainable and easily figure outable, but like until I know or understand a good or clear reason why to do something, like I don't think, because it just creates problems down the road, right? The less people understand why, the more problems you have coming down the road and down the pipeline eventually. So correcting that and keeping that pipeline so that everyone understands the general idea of what you're doing, I think is super important for anything you do.
So true. Chris, this has been an absolutely fantastic interview. You've given some incredible advice. Thank you so much. How do people find you?
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
How do they find you? How do they reach out to you? So that you can keep giving more advice?
Biggest thing, just follow me on Twitter, at kidliquid. And you can follow me on Twitter, and I retweet a whole bunch of random stuff, and I tweet random gems of knowledge and memes and the occasional dad joke, because I'm legally allowed to do that. But otherwise just keep doing your thing, man. You're good.
I love it, Chris. I have a TikTok, and I haven't posted in a long time because all I did was
get on it.
No, all I did was dad jokes with my daughter. Like I'd sit there like, "Hey, Bree."
Yeah.
And eventually she started like rolling her eyes. It wasn't so funny anymore.
Those are the best. Unwanted dad jokes are the best dad jokes.
Right. All right. Now, as we wrap up, Chris, do you have any final thoughts you want to share, or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
No, I'm good. I think I've spent far too much time talking and far too much time. No one wants to listen to me talk for this long. But thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Certainly, I wanted to listen to you. But Chris, thank you. Genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate you coming on with us.
No problem, man.
All right. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.